The first thing you need to understand is that dropshipping in India is not really dropshipping. It's full on e-commerce if you really want to succeed at it. Because there are some platforms, we had Roposo like previously, but it was more or less a scam because they had a lot of, fake RTO and all that bullshit, right? So now you have some other platforms, like I haven't really tried any of them to be honest. But the thing is that most of them are just like Roposo. They'll not deliver your stuff properly and you don't really have much of control. So the first thing you need to understand is that if you really want to do like this in India, you actually have to do e-commerce because you have to hold your inventory. All right. So yeah, basically that's the thing. So you cannot really do dropshipping. Dropshipping in India, you have to hold you have to hold what am I saying? You have to hold inventory and basically have to do full on e-commerce. All right. E-com, let's just write e-com. All right. So yeah, you have to do basically full on e-commerce, and that's the first thing that's very important. The second thing that you need to understand is that your speed of iteration is basically very modern than the quality of the iteration you do in the beginning. All right. So what happens in like when you're starting is that most people, they get very obsessed with very small things like the logo, the domain, the color of the logo, and the theme, etc. All right. So the thing is that if you get very what's the word for it? Very fixated with this in the beginning, then your speed of iteration will basically get slowed down. All right. And thankfully, I realized this at the very beginning of my of like starting this. And what ended up happening is that I used to basically test like 2-3 products in a day. Now that's not really a good idea, and that a day. All right. So how do I did this? Now obviously the thing is that you might wonder that how did I test this with very low budget. I'll just come to that in a moment. You cannot really do this at this point because you need my budget for this, but back then it was possible, right? So I'll tell you how I did it. So the thing is that the speed of iteration is very important, all right? Because in the beginning you don't really know what works. So the only way you can know what works is by figuring out what doesn't work, which is concept called inversion, all right? So inversion basically says that if you don't know what you should be doing, right, just do everything possible, which will what that will cause is that you will end up doing everything that you should not be doing. All right. And by understanding what you should not be doing, you will eventually lead to the thing that you should be doing. All right. So this is what ended up happening because you should be doing. Okay. How, you might ask? So the thing is that because what I used to do is I used to basically have this sort of daily task that I had to shortlist at least 100 products a day. Yeah, 100. Now obviously I didn't really hit 100. Some days was 50, some day was 60, right? 50, 60, what the hell is going on? Some days 60, some days 70, some days 100, right? But more or less I used to try to do this. And then what I did was on weekends I used to I had this like in a sheet, right? And what I used to do is that I used to open this sheet and then shortlist from here. All right. So I used to have like 500 to 700 products per week. All right. And what I used to do is that I used to shortlist from here, and I used to like make it like top 10. Okay. Top 10. So yeah, this is like the crazy thing that I have done. So now why I did this is because I didn't really have the budget to test a lot of products, and it's also the thing that you should spend your time before you spend your money, especially when you don't have a lot of it, right? So I used to like shortlist top 10, and eventually I ended up just doing the top 5, and I kept like reiterating this process until I found my first winner. So obviously it wasn't this extreme later on. This was in the very beginning when I didn't really have any money to like for paid tools as well. So I used to like scroll on Instagram and that ads library and everything. And I used to do like this because what this helps you do is it kind of like trains your eye. All right. And then eventually you understand like what kind of product works because you have seen so many products flop. So it is not just shortlisting. I used to like, write down why this would work, why this product would work, why this would work, why this would not work, everything. And I kind of developed this understanding and this intuition, and now I can just look at a product and understand, okay, this will work, this will not work, and that's why I have a 100% hit rate. But to get to that 100% hit rate, this has to happen first because you have to train your eye. So this is what you need to understand. Before you find your first winner, you have to understand what sort of product doesn't work, and that is why when people rush to find a winner, and even if they find a winner and they don't understand why it's a winner, they can't really do it. It's like a lottery ticket. Okay. So that is why, there's this quote by Iman Ghazi that says, he said that, don't pray for success to come early, pray that when it does come to you, you are ready to handle it. So what ends up happening with most people is that you will eventually find a winner. Okay, this is guaranteed, because the thing is, even if you have a 1% chance of finding a winner, if you just test 100 products, you will find a winner. And obviously, you learn from every test, you learn something. So definitely you have more than 1% chance, right? So if you just stay long enough, you will find a winner. But what is really important is you need to understand that why the product that you tested was a winner. You need to understand the marketing side of things, right? So this is why this is really important, and this helps helps you train your eye to do that. All right. So, and the thing is that, if I were to get very fixated with this, I would have never been able to do this, because you might have heard of the Pareto principle, right? So Pareto principle, that says that, the 30-80 principle basically. So the 80% of the results in anything is because of the 20% of the work. And in the beginning, all right, I'm not talking about like baad mein, in the beginning, okay, when you're just trying to make your first money online, the 20% is basically your product. Okay, so the most amount of time you spend should be on the product, because if your product is a winner, I'll just tell you, you can make your first 50 lakhs with this, all right, in revenue, right? So if you just do this, you'll be able to crack it. Okay, but obviously, as you grow and you want to grow your own company and stuff, it obviously is a lot more complex than that. But in the beginning, when you're just trying to make your first money online, the product is mostly everything. So you have to solely be fixated on the product. And obviously, if you can and learn about ads and stuff, it helps. But if you just do this right in the beginning, which is like the product, you'll make your first money with this. All right. So that's the second thing. The third thing that you need to understand is that you need to give emphasis to prepaid. Okay. So why is this important? Now, in the beginning, I didn't really understand this, obviously, but if you have prepaid good, then what will happen is that you can fund your ad spend with this. So this is something I realized very later on. In the beginning, I didn't really think about this, and I used to think that why do you need it? But obviously, as you gotta understand this, if you give emphasis to the branding part of things, now obviously it might sound a bit contradictory to what I'm saying, but this is after you have found a product. So let's say you found a product, and you are making some money, like let's say you're doing like 5-10 lakhs per month. Then what you should try to do is you should make like store like professional and branded and everything, because if you can get your prepaid to even 30%, even if you were to get it to 30%, it will cover your ad spend. If it is 40, this is from my experience, if it is 40%, you can cover your ad spend plus shipping fees. If it is 50%, then it can cover your ad spend plus shipping fees plus make a bit of profit. Okay, so even if you should at least aim for 30% prepaid. If you can get this, you can cover your ad spend. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to scale. And you have to also remember one thing, that the more you scale, the more your prepaid will come down, because you're reaching colder audiences. Now, obviously you can maintain it, but that requires a lot of sophistication, funnels and advertorials and blah blah blah. So don't get into that. But basically, just try to have 30% prepaid, because this will allow you to scale. And basically, let's say you did like 10. Let's say you did 50,000 today, so 30% of it is 15,000 rupees. So you can, and let's say your ad spend is, let's say, I don't know, 15,000. So basically today's sale will cover your next day ad spend, which is very, very cool, because whatever COD then becomes your thing. So as I said, 30% will cover your ad spend, 40% will cover ad spend plus shipping, 50% will cover your COGS as well. But obviously you have already paid for the COGS, so it's a bit of profit you can have on your hand, right? So that's one thing. And and the most important thing is that don't get fixated with ROAS. Like, this is the biggest mistake I have seen people make. ROAS and CPP. So I think I would like to correct here. I mean here Facebook ROAS. All right. So this is I feel like the biggest mistake people make in India is that they get fixated with the Facebook ROAS and the Facebook CPP. They don't matter. Okay. What matters is the actual ROAS. Now, what is the actual ROAS? Your actual ROAS is your Facebook ROAS multiplied by delivery rate. Okay. So this is very, very important. And so let's say if your Facebook ROAS is 5, your delivery rate is, let's say, 60%. Okay. So the 0.6 is equals to 3. So your actual ROAS is actually 3, not 5. This is very, very important. And what you need to also understand is that you cannot get a 10x ROAS. The people who's showing you 10x ROAS don't make any money. All right, they have like 20%, 30% delivery rate, and all that they are trying to do is, flex you some Shopify revenue. This is not possible. Just think about it. If this was possible at scale, and this were to give you like 80% or 90% delivery rate, who the fuck is Mark Zuckerberg? They would be Zuckerbergs, right? So this is not possible. Eventually at scale, your ROAS will come down to 2.5 to 3. Okay. Anyone who has scaled to a reasonable amount of ad spends, I'm talking like 2 lakhs, 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees a day in ad spend, they will tell you that this is what at scale your ROAS will be. Okay. It is not possible to get a 10x ROAS. You can get a 4x, maybe 5x. All right, that's possible. That is arguably possible if you are very good at marketing. Okay. But depending on what your AOV is, because I like to personally operate at higher AOVs, like 2000 or something, my ROAS is generally this. Okay. Because my break-even ROAS is always around under 1.5. Okay. So this is the numbers I like to operate at. All right, because and I try to keep this closer to 1 as possible, because then even if my ROAS is 2, I'm making crazy money, right? So yeah, so I like to be at 1.3, 1.5. That's like the range I like to operate at. Okay. Anybody showing you 10x ROAS, is not making the amount of money you think they're making, because it's simply not possible. If they were actually doing 10x ROAS with 80% delivery rate, okay, I actually help you understand how this actually works. So the thing is, like, let's say 10x ROAS, let's say you're selling something for 599, all right, okay, and you have a 10x ROAS. That means your cost per purchase is 59 rupees. Okay, 59 rupees, 59.9. Let's just take 60. Okay, 60 rupees. Okay, so what do you think the quality of audience you're gonna get if you're paying 60 rupees to Facebook for a purchase of 600 rupees? Not very good, right? Kind of like, you pay a premium to get a premium phone. I know you pay a lot of money to get the iPhone because it's a premium phone, right? But if you're paying 10,000 rupees, you're gonna get a Sasta phone. Now I don't want to name any brands, but let's say whatever. Yes, you get a Sasta phone, right? But the same thing works here. If you're paying just 60 rupees, you're gonna get a customer who can just buy this, and they will probably RTO it. Okay. But if you want to pay 600 rupees, you're gonna get a customer who will prepay and who's not gonna RTO. Okay. So the people operating at 10x ROAS, 8x ROAS, 9x ROAS are generally the ones with 50, 60, max 60, like 40 to 60% delivery rate. Okay. So you need to understand that, at scale, if you really, and to be honest, like, the reason why I said I like to operate here is because this gives me a very accurate number of the amount of money I'm making in my Facebook only. Okay. The thing is, if let's say I were to hypothetically see more revenue on Shopify and have a 8x ROAS, I have to do so much more calculation to actually understand my P&L. But if I just actually operate at this ROAS on Facebook, okay, let's say I have a 85% delivery rate, okay, and I have systems in place that basically block people, and I have a 300 to 500 cost per purchase, right? And I am to actually like get high quality audience, then the actual ROAS that I have, let's say 3 into 3.85, right? 3 into 0.85, that's a 2.55 ROAS. So if my break even is 1.3 or 1.5, I'm one above that. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's how you like make money, right, at scale. Because you have to understand, if you were to operate at 10x, 8x, 6x ROAS at a 3 lakh per day ad spend, who the fuck would be Zuckerberg, right? You would beat him. It's common sense, right? So this is what you need to understand. At scale, your ROAS will come down, and the better, like the more lower your ROAS is on Facebook and the closer it is with delivery rate, the better it is. Because you don't want to get a 10x ROAS with 50% delivery rate. It doesn't make any sense. It's better to do this, all right? Because it gives you a more clear and accurate picture of what your business is actually doing, and that you can actually call a business. Alright, so that was the video. I hope you liked it. If you are someone who wants to start and scale their own e-commerce business, then you can reach me out on my email. We can help you get started. You have a guarantee that if you don't get results, then we work for free till you do. And it's not a guarantee. I say I have a 100% hit rate. The people who take action in my program are guaranteed to get results. Alright, so if you're someone who is interested in that, you can check the link, email me, and we can see if we can help you out. And yeah, that was it. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.